air quality early warning systems to strengthen decision making in India. So, Ashish, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, hi, I'm giving this talk on behalf of our lead author of the study, Rajesh, who is not here. So, if you have questions, I'll try to answer. Otherwise, I'll relay it to him, or you can directly ask him. I'll give his email address. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that NCAR has done and NSF, Indian funding agencies, and we have done together and are continuing to do with respect to developing early warning systems in India, especially related to air quality. So, as some of you are from that part of the world, Delhi faces severe air quality issues, especially during winter time. And there were some. These are some newspaper clippings that you can see here. One of the newspapers directly quoting doctors from Delhi, from a well-renowned institution called AIMS, All India Medical Institution of Sciences, that from 2000 to 2010, there were around 10,000 people coming in to the hospital with respiratory-related issues. But from 2010 to 2020, in recent times, it has increased 300 times. Hospitalizations are around 30 to 40,000 right now. Also, some interesting quotes. The Times of India reporting that when he was coming to India, they were saying if Obama should stay indoors because of poor air quality. Likewise, from a different lens, you can see cricket players in a stadium in Delhi. It's pre-COVID, so that they are wearing masks because of poor air quality, and some of the players even vomited on the ground. So just kind of, there are few episodes that happen, especially during the winter times where the air quality really, really is super bad. So if you look at major emissions affecting the region, on the left hand side, you can see an average of anthropogenic emissions that happen throughout the year, which I forgot to include the scale, but it is very high. And also you can see these cross sections where you can see cities and the transport sector really contributing to a lot of emissions going inside the Delhi. On the right is the crop residue burning, especially during this, after the crop season is finished, during the spring and fall for both the seasons, you can see a lot of emissions come from that source. Third major source of emission is the dust storms, especially during the spring season. So all these sources of emissions basically create a lot of havoc in that area. So there was a study done recently where we were trying to look at interstate transport of emissions affecting Delhi. And on the top row is the carbon monoxide emission, and the bottom one is the black carbon. And basically, the map shows for different seasons what are the transport of emissions coming from different states within the region to Delhi. And the transport of emission is, if you look at very carefully, we are showing the percentage here, really shows, okay, based on the monsoon season or otherwise based on flow of winds, the regions change, which really impact Delhi area. So I think these kind of assessments are really helpful for cities and governments to really figure it out, okay, which are the areas and which are the regions contributing to the emissions. Likewise, in this map here, you can see particulate matter concentration over 3 years, and you can see the PM concentrations are really high over the winter time period. And we are showing both the daily and the monthly average, and the daily averages at times even surpass 500 micrograms per meter cube. And on the right side is the ozone concentration map, just showing, okay, when the ozone peaks generally is the springtime. So, given all these reasons, the the government of India, especially the Ministry of Earth Sciences, has started various initiatives, and one of them is establishing a lot of air quality monitoring network systems around Delhi area. And just wanted to share what kind of stations that we have and the spread of them. In addition, there are air quality forecasts being done, which try to really help with the decision support. There are also information dissemination systems, for example, using digital boards, text messages, mobile apps, and websites, and hoardings in the city, okay, so that they can advise communities and residents of the threats that the region is facing. and because of how the air quality has been poor, a national clean air program was established, which really targets to reduce India's air pollution, especially in this area, more than 20 to 30%. So going back to the work that we are doing, the Rajesh and team constraint used WRF model, which I'm sure the whole community knows here, and combined with chemistry. So running WRF cam, and here we are showing WRF cam constrained aerosol optical depth with MODIS. So you can see the MODIS is in black color. And if you are doing simulations without MODIS, the frequency distribution of AOD is way off. So constraining them with data simulation with aerosol optical depth, we could really come closer to the reality. And this is a kind of a, average map for the region for the time period between 10th October and 20th December for the time period, just to show how the AOD distribution is in the northern part of India. Uh, so the forecast model was run combined with chemistry, and you can see a few of the results here just to show how the first day forecast, the second day forecast, and the third day forecast is for that period of time from 10th October to 20th November. We are comparing against Central Pollution Control Board observations, and you can see WRF model, which is constrained with without aerosol optical depths, is in the red color. That's the background run or base run or a control run, which is not able to replicate the observations. After constraining that the model with the aerosol optical depth, we were able to get much more real representation, and the mean bias started reducing considerably, with around 86% for the first day forecast and around 70 to 80% for the second and third day. If you look much more carefully, there's a green line as well, and which shows, okay, when you are considering the aerosol radiation feedbacks and not. So about 75% of the improvement in forecast resulted from data simulation, and about 25% from that is due to the interaction of aerosols with radiation. Okay, and then also it was we figured that persistent fire emissions assumptions works well for the northern India. So the whole idea was, and I'll speak to this a little bit later, when we didn't really represent urban areas here explicitly, and this is without doing that. So when you are working on solutions, okay, there are approaches that we need to take as scientists. We'd like to really make sure the urban representation is accurate. That's what I do it myself. But without doing that, there are other methods because of non-availability of urban morphology, for example. How do you tailor those methods using data simulation and XYZ techniques so that you can really make sure the techniques, the data, and the methods which are available can be used for those places which doesn't have resources. It's not just PM; it's just showing results for temperature as well. So we were able to make some improvements in the temperature forecast as well. Just showing some figures similar to the previous slide, that what were the reductions, how temperatures were better modeled. And then again, the message, if you look at the same color coding, the aerosol radiation feedbacks are very important if you want to really understand pollution as well as temperature feedbacks. So this is, okay, going back to another concept, especially for this community, that there have been discussion, and I myself a part of it, that we really should not push the models to below 500-meter resolution, especially WRF and all those things. But if you are pushing the model, for example, here we push the model to 400-meter resolution, model did not crash, and model, okay, it can give bad output, and it did not give back it did not just give good output for one case. We have been consistently running this model for multiple years and getting considerable amount of good results. So of course there would be other things going on that are wrong in the model, but I think for decision support, with whatever resources and the constraint that we are not able to well represent urban features, we are still able to capture and provide much better information than other data sets. So this is emissions which the region developed at 400-meter resolution, and using the emissions we ran the model, and then even scaled those emissions at 400-meter resolution to about 10 kilometers. And then you can see the suffer emissions which were at 400 uh, upscaled to 10 kilometer even were reasonable when we were doing assessments. So it's all about figuring those creative ways to make sure even with low computing cost can you get reasonable results. So forecast evaluation, this is a paper from Morris in 2005, which articulates for what bias, fractional bias, or for what error your model is performing good, for what ranges. We try to compare with that, and I think the performance was good for hourly PM 2.5, and it was excellent for daily PM 2.5 and hourly air quality index. So just trying to share, okay, we were able to capture those things. Uh, so, talking about decision support systems for Delhi. So this map basically is a busy map which shows local and non-local fractional contribution of PM 2.5 from different areas surrounding the Delhi, and then over the next 3 decades of forecasting. And among the local sources, transportation industry was identified as the most predominant and source of contributor to particulate matter concentrations. If you look at non-local sources, we identified a location, Jhaghar, which was the dominant contributor. So when you're talking about decision support systems, you can make these kind of assessments and figure out, okay, where interventions needs to be made so that you can have improvements. To support this, we did even sensitivity studies. We reduced emissions by 20% and 40% from each sector and region. And then we ran the models and identified, okay, how does it changes, right? So that you can, rather than just recommending those things, you can try to do it in a modeling world and then make those recommendations. Also, it's not just we are just highlighting the model that we are working on, but also just trying to showcase with respect to ensemble forecasts. These are all the models that are available and showing, okay, how does our model does in comparison to others. So I think it does a really reasonable job. And the next step that we are working on right now is introducing urban much more effectively. So how does that improve the forecast, or it doesn't improve the forecast, and how can we play around with that? So that's the next step. So this is my last slide, where how this early warning forecasting system works is Delhi air quality information that is produced through this portal is released and is through a Commission for Air Quality Management, which is a Supreme Court authority. And then if the pollution levels are really high in the region, the activities are restricted. And for example, odd even schemes, you can take your odd number plates car today and even tomorrow, opening of odd even shops and activities like this, closing off a lot of facilities that produce a lot of emissions, for example. And if it is cleaner air, normal operations are recommended. Schools reopen after pollution's break, construction bans are lifted, and that kind of strategy. So overall, these really help empower decision makers. This approach is also being translated and ported to other cities. For example, being really developed right now for the Indian cities, Pune, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, and Mumbai. I'll leave my summary slides here, and thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. Do we have questions from the room? Yes, there's one a little back. We'll just wait for the microphone to go up.
The majority of cities are spending money on. Delhi particularly, nearby cities, 9 cities got marked.